Hi, this is Ramesh Reddy from Tier Team. Hey, I wanted to quickly take your time and show a little feature I've been working for the last couple of weeks called something called database redirection. What is database redirection, right? Database redirection. Let's say if you are working on a microservice and and it uses a database, and so any updates you make from your microservices are going to your production or whatever your database that is hooked up to your microservice. But let's say if you are wanting to test a new feature, you want to deploy a new version of it, but you really don't want to mess with the your prod or your master data on your in your production database. But at the same time, you want to test the feature out. The way the example I'm going to show you is a very transparent way how we can do that. The solution is what I'm going to show you is I'm going to deploy another a redundant database alongside your production database. Like, let's say if you have a prod Postgres database, I will deploy another Postgres database alongside it just to capture any updates or deletes or inserts you have. But at the same put together the data from your production database as well as redirect database and give you a combined view or a single view. Let's say you added a customer but you deleted a customer, but the resultant select would be a right customer database, right customer result set you're gonna get. So I use tiered for these purposes, tiered Spring Boot to be precise. So I have to demonstrate this. I have a I have a local OpenShift instance running. Even though I have to begin with, I'm gonna show you the original one. What I did is I deployed the booster application, CRUD booster application based on Spring Boot. It uses a single database. I use Postgres for that, and my booster application is deployed. And here is my booster application. If I am querying it, yeah, I have apple, cherry, banana. Then I have a SQL server, not SQL server. I'm sorry, pSQL terminal opened up, so you can still see the cherry, apple, banana here. So we still have cherry, apple, banana. Let's add another fruit, orange, right? If I add an orange, obviously if I go back here, yeah, you see an orange. And let's say if I change the apple to a gala apple instead of a regular apple, okay, we change the gala apple. So now we go back to our thing, say fruit. Now the apple has been changed to gala apple. So everything is, that's what you see in a regular application. That's good. Everything is good, right? Now what I want to do is I want to take, this is my application. So there are couple. This is a straight copy of the CRUD booster application I copied, but I did make couple changes to it. Namely, instead of using the identity generation, I used a sequence-based generation because we don't support tier doesn't support identity-based generation just yet. So I wanted to use that. That's one I made a change. I also changed the import script. It was the import.sql. Instead of that, I changed it to Spring Boot specific data slash your platform name or schema name. So in my case, my database is SampleDB. So I put in those. I also put in the schema for it. The original example was the schema was auto generated. Here I wanted to make sure that I wanted the sequence to be created, so that's why I put in the schema for it. So those are the changes. At the same time, if you go back and see it, ignore all the commented ones just for now, but here are the data sources, how I configured and I pushed the database service name, user password through the deployment YAML. So that's straightforward, right? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take the same application. I want to convert this one into a one I can do redirection. The very first thing I want to do is I want to go to the pom.xml. I want to add in a dependency for tier. So I already have one working in there. So I'm going to start tiered boot starter. That's my redirection library, tiered library. I also gonna so I need, for this case I need two databases, right? So in Spring, to configure two data sources is little quirky, little different than the single data source. Single data source is very simple, but if you want to configure two different data sources, they are little more. At the same time, if you want to configure, in my case, when I'm doing the writes, it's going across two databases. So I'm reading from one and also writing to one. I want to wrap that into a one single transaction in an XA transaction. For that, I can't use simple data source. I got to use a XA data source. So here is my data sources class, and let me see. I think I am not too sure. Is that one? JavaX dex source. So what am I doing here? So I am configuring two different data sources. One I am calling SampleDB. That's my SampleDB data source. And one I am calling redirected. That is the name I'm calling my bean name, redirected. What I'm if you are creating a XA data source, you need to wrap it with the XA data source wrapper. There's a little bit more to it in terms of how to create it. If you need, this is not important for this demo, how to create an XA data source, so I'm not going to go into details as how these are configured, but basically, it's the same as data XA. Instead of you creating a JavaX SQL data source, you are creating a JavaX SQL data source, but it's a XA data source you are creating. That's about it. So then to match to this data source, I'm gonna go comment out this, because that's gonna create a simple data source. I am going to create another properties for that. I just changed the Spring instead of Spring data source, I put in Spring XA data source. If you say it, then they given the data source name, username, password, and properties for each database that corresponding to it. If you remember, if you go back, I have two databases on my OpenShift, that is SampleDB and Redirected, and both of them, I configured those both in here, right? Then these are a couple other properties I use in my tiered configuration. This is the important one. Spring tier redirected equals to true. So I set that one up. So you can see my deployment file. I'm reading the Postgres credentials and passing into environment variables, so on and so forth. So basically what I did is I created the sequence. I added the schema in the Spring Boot style. I added Exadata sources. So these two, the first two are, you should have, our CRUD application should have been doing that to begin with. The last one is, I added the data sources and I added the application properties for the data sources, and set redirected is true. That's it. So in effect, I added the data sources and I added this redirect is true. Now I'm gonna go back to my console. I'm gonna redeploy this application. So let's see. So if you go back here, here I still have that, but let's see. I don't have any relations found. This is my redirected database SQL console for the Postgres. Let's see the progress of the build. It's going on. Just give it a second. All right, it's a success. If I go back to my OpenShift console, it's going through the redeployment. Just give it another minute. Hopefully this will come up. Ooh, that is bad. Let's see what's going on here. Oh yeah, I know what happened there. So give me 1 second to fix that. In here I needed to be sequence name to be sampledb.fruit sequence. That's what I needed. I'm gonna redeploy. Sorry about that. I should have known better. The reason is, why this failed, why it did work before is the way we are doing is we are transparently, if you go back to my original picture, right? We are what I'm doing by including that POM XML is, I am including a database here, a tier database like that, right? Then your microservices, instead of talking directly to the product data, I implicitly inject it. Instead of directly talking to the product database, it talks through the tier database. So it becomes the proxy for that. So now I can control the schema. I can control where the updates and deletes go, all of those. So in the first iteration, the schema was qualified to the prod database. In the second one, it was qualified to what tier knows as the schema. So that's why it failed. Looks like it went through. Let's see if I go back. Oh yeah, it came back up. So if I go back here, you see select fruit. It has apple, cherry, banana. Obviously, I restarted the database, reloaded the data in there. So the interesting thing is, I had no relations found before, no tables found before. So we should see a something called fruit redirected. What is fruit redirected? Select star from fruit redirected. You should see no rows, and this table is auto created based on the other table, right? and there are no rows right now. So now we go back and let's refresh this thing. We still have apple, cherry, apple, banana. I'm gonna add a orange, or ANGE if I can spell it. Okay, I added orange. Now let's go back to my first sample DB database. So it doesn't have orange in there. It's cherry, apple, banana. But if I go back here to my fruit redirected, it should have the orange there. But you can see my fruit list is cherry, apple, banana, orange. I want to change the apple now. Instead of apple, I want to say a gala apple. So I'm going to save that. Again, going back to here, still my database has not changed. And if I come back here and do that, yeah, my database, the ID 21 gala apple has been changed. Now let's do a delete. Now I don't want no more cherries. I'm going to get rid of it. Again, coming back here, it's not touched. If you come back here, and it has a record of that being deleted, right? So what has happened is, we have effectively the tiered in the middle has been effectively managing it and giving you a collective view of these two databases. Now if you, once you are done with the testing, you could always go back and change the property I showed you, spring tiered redirected true to false, right? Then it will switch back to your original database. It will just simply, it will work as a pass through to the production database. It would be minimal effect in that case. So that could be controlled through environment variable. So that's all I wanted to show. Thank you for viewing so far. Thank you.